So welcome again, Realty Pros, to our Realty Talk for this afternoon. And I'm excited today because we have someone here who is going to be sharing with us today. And as I was saying, pre-recording, that this person knows everything. So make sure you have your questions together. I'm sure, just world renowned. This person is world renowned. Okay, so make sure you have all your questions together. I know that he has a lot of great information for us today. And so I'm going to go ahead and I am going to turn it over to none other than our Mr. Porter.
Thank you so much, Anita. Good afternoon to all my Realty Pros. You know, I'm really excited that I had an opportunity, and Jasmine let me off the cage. She told me I can get on my soapbox. But I just wanted to come and talk to you all about some business basics. And before I begin, I just want to make sure that I'm set up correctly and that you guys can hear me well. So I need somebody to come off mute and tell me what you see on your screen in front of you and if you can hear me.
Can hear you fine and can see you fine as well. Thank you.
Okay, so you don't see the slide that I have up?
Yes, business basics.
Okay, great. So good, Angela, I'm glad you on here too, because I know Angela and we had a conversation about this, and I said I was going to do it for a long time, and I have been wanting to get this done, and I'm going to get a chance to do it today. So I'm really excited. So I'm gonna ask that you guys come with your questions, and hopefully I can answer some things. Now, let me say this before I begin. As a disclaimer, I am not a tax accountant. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not any of those things. I do own some businesses, and I'm going to tell you about some of the practices that have benefited me in business and in real estate especially. I'll tell you a little bit about, my background and all of that kind of stuff, so you can see how my mind works and all that good stuff. But I want to give you all some practical things that you can do to structure yourselves and structure your business if you haven't already done it, and some of the things that you might not even realize that you need to take advantage of. So I'm going to just kind of jump in right now and just let you know, you guys know me. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Shea Porter, the owner of PorterHouse International Realty Group, along with my beautiful wife, who's also our broker. She's my boss, Jasmine Porter. But PorterHouse International Realty Group is not the first business that I've ever owned. I actually started out very young, and I know people think it's cute when I tell this story, but I used to be one of those guys that would knock on people's door and come cut your grass. And I would do that in my neighborhood. And one day, my mother she's just a sharp woman. She said, why don't you get a contract? I had no idea. I was 10, 12 years old, between 10 and 12. I had no idea what a contract was. And she sat down and basically said, it's just an agreement that instead of you having to knock on the door every time, why don't you just say, hey, I'll come back every other week and I'll cut your grass at the same price. And we already have this established. So during the time, she worked at a place where she could actually go and print me up these nice little cards. And they were kind of like door hanger cards, and they had a little hole punch thing. So I took those cards around to all of my neighbors, people who I've been cutting their grass. And I said, if you want me to cut your grass, here's how we're going to set up the payment. You can just put a check on the door. This is my business name. I'm going to do this. And I couldn't believe it. I walked outside on that Saturday and I saw people had taped checks on the doors, and it was just flapping in the wind, like, come cut my grass, come cut my grass. And I just couldn't believe how many people had heard about this. They were all excited for me, and they wanted me to come cut their grass. Now, I lived in a townhouse neighborhood, which was great, so I could just cut across all of the grass, and they were neighbors, and then that way I saved myself some time. But what I quickly realized was that I couldn't do all of that work by myself. So I immediately went and bought a new lawnmower the next day after I got my checks, and I hired my buddy Phil. And so Phil, my mother taught me an important lesson. She said, now, you don't want, if Phil is not putting anything into the business, he's just going to be an employee. You want to establish an agreement with him, another contract, so that he'll get paid by the hour. Well, I was charging, it was only back in the good old days. I'm not gonna tell you how old I am, but it was only about $10 to cut your grass front and back, or 15 maybe, depending on the size of your yard. And I knew I could cut about 2 or 3 yards in about an hour. And I was paying Phil above the minimum wage, which minimum wage was $3.50 at the time. But Phil was making $5.50 an hour. He was the happiest kid in the whole neighborhood. Phil would cut grass like you wouldn't believe, so much so that it got to the next side of the neighborhood. Before you knew it, we had the entire neighborhood pretty much on lockdown. And we were cutting grass, and it was really a great experience for me. And that was my first understanding of business. And then I went to school and I studied business, but I didn't go into business right away. I went into education, et cetera, and now moved into, I started doing real estate on the side. I knew about investment opportunities. I was taking some of my 401k money, borrowing against it, and giving it to people who were doing wholesales at the time and flips. And I was always dabbling in it. I was interested, but I'm so excited to be back in business. I love business. It's risky, but you got to set yourself up right for success. So I'm just going to give you some of the business basics. I've been doing business for a long time. And I understand business. I understand how to set it up. I have some, education. I have a business degree, actually. So I understand some of the principles and practices. And so there's no necessary right or wrong, but there's some really good foundational pieces that I hope that you all get from this. And the first one I'm going to talk to you about is business entity, and especially LLCs, all right? So I often get questions about, I did something wrong, hold on a second. Go to the next slide, there we go. I also often get questions about LLCs. So the first question people want to know is, why an LLC? Well, let me tell you what an LLC is. It's a U.S. business structure which combines the limited liability protection of a corporation with the simplicity of pass-through protection of a sole proprietorship, which is a mouthful. All right, but I'm going to just go through these bullets because then I'll be able to explain to you a little bit more. Okay, so LLCs protect the business owner's personal assets, your car, house, and savings in the event of lawsuits or defaults on that. Okay, there's also, so let me explain those a little bit. First thing I want to establish is that you and I, we're human beings. We have a social security number, but for government and business purposes, we are an individual entity. We are an entity with a tax ID number. That tax ID number is how they track what you're doing with your finances. It's attached to anything that you pretty much do, and that's the way the government is able to, find out what you're doing. When you establish an LLC, you are creating a brand new independent entity. That LLC, even though you might be a sole proprietor, say for instance, if you're conducting your business right now, you're considered a sole proprietor. When you establish an LLC, you still are a sole proprietor, but you're now doing business in the name of or as the LLC. The LLC is its own entity. And as such, in order to take advantage of some of the tax benefits, you have to establish a social security number for your business, which is known as an EIN. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in a little bit. But the EIN is basically your employer identification number. And I really like the wording of that, employer identification number. That's what it's called in the IRS. And it kind of gives you a hint of how you should set up your business. So a lot of times when we establish LLCs, for those of you who have done it, how many people have done it? Anybody want to come offline and tell me if they've established an LLC and what's the name of your LLC? You can be loud and proud.
I got my LLCs.
Okay, what's the name of your LLC, sir? And who are you? Is this Mr. Right Price?
Yeah, this is Curtis Price.
Curtis.
My
Go ahead, tell us.
My LLC is Right Price Property Pros LLC, and then I have Fraternal Elite Fitness LLC, and I have 23rd Place Properties LLC.
Awesome. Now, let me ask you a question. How are your LLCs, do your LLCs all have their own individual EINs?
Yes, they do. It's like your social security number for your business.
Very good. Very good. Now, you have those EINs. Now, let me ask you, do you have a parent company or an umbrella company for your LLCs?
No, so each one is its own separate entity
Okay.
and they function because the gym is the gym. My realtor as an agent is the realtor as an agent. And then my other one is going to be for something else.
All right.
So they're all separate. Eventually, though, I don't want to, but to lock it all in a trust. But they're all separate.
Awesome. Okay. Anybody else? Thank you.
So this is Dee Richardson, and
Yes.
I do have the Ritchie Associates, which was supposed to be my umbrella company, but I still have not figured out how to get that right. I have Pipe and Rich Properties, and I have, well, those are the two that I'm really working with right now. I'm also trying to establish Ritchie Needle Terrace here in Maryland.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? So you have multiple LLCs, both of you all. Anybody else have an LLC? Shout out
I
your
have
LLC.
LLC.
All right. Hey, D'Amica, go ahead.
Okay. So it's a partnership LLC. So it's called S&D Dwellings, and it's going to be for properties, and
Okay,
it's
great.
based in North Carolina.
Okay, great. You said it's based in North Carolina.
Yeah.
Very good, good. Okay, I'm gonna talk a little bit about that too. Go ahead. Anybody else? Is that it, D'Amica? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, that's the only one I have.
Okay, okay, great, great. Anybody else? Okay, so as you can see, the LLC process is people who are doing it already. You can have multiple LLCs. The most important thing is that each one of them has to have their own EIN or employer identification number. Okay, they're individual. They're all their own individual entity, if you will. So the government recognizes them just like if you were giving birth to children. You get every time you get one, you got to get an EIN for that business. But I want to go a little bit deeper into what the LLC does, and then I'm going to also talk to you about how to establish, not just to set it up, but to establish your LLC and how to use it to the benefit of your business. Right. The other thing is that the LLC provides you what's called a pass-through taxation protection, which is a system of taxation that generally applies to sole proprietors, partnerships, and LLCs and S corps. But in this system, the profits or losses of the business are not taxed at the business level. So if you have a major corporation, you're going to pay double tax. You're going to pay the corporation tax, and then you're going to also pay a personal tax. But when you have an LLC that's structured as a partnership, or sole proprietorship, or S corp, what happens is that the business profits or losses pass through the business, and then you're only taxed at the personal rate, which is giving you a hint as to how you might want to structure some things for your business. Okay. So it says in this system, the profits or losses of the business are not taxed at the business level. Instead, they pass through to the owner's personal tax returns and are taxed at each owner's personal income tax rate. So whatever your personal income tax rate is, that's what the way the business pass-through taxes are going to be. Profits or losses of your business under the LLC, S corp, or sole proprietorship, that's the way it's going to be taxed. I'm not going to get into a lot of detail about that because that's something I want you to have a conversation with a tax professional about. But I'm giving you these nuggets because I want to give you some hints as to things you might want to be thinking about, questions you might have when you sit down and talk to accountants, so they'll know where you're trying to go and how to help you structure your business better. But these are conversations. So just hear that out. There's a way to structure my business. There's a way to structure my business so that the profits or losses of the business are not taxed at a corporate rate, but rather will be taxed at a personal rate, which save me a lot of money in my taxes. And there's a way to do that. And then there's a couple of little hints that I'm going to go into it a little bit. All right. Now, we already talked about you can have multiple LLCs. And then this is the last one I like, you know, in our industry. Here's just something, another little, I'm just going to give you little nuggets. I'm not making any kind of disclaimers. I'm not telling you anything to do with any of this information. I'm just sharing some information that I know. Investors can purchase properties in the name of the LLC and sell the LLC, which does not trigger the transfer and recordation taxation because they are selling the LLC in the business of the LLC and not necessarily the property. Tell me what you get from that. Have any of you ever heard of that?
Yes.
Think about what I'm saying.
Yes, I've heard of it.
Think about what I'm saying. I'm gonna say it one more time. I want you guys to really think now. Yeah, concentrate. An investor can purchase a property in the name of LLC and then sell their property and make money selling their property. And when, well, not selling the property, but sell the LLC that also is attached to that property, their property's name. And it doesn't trigger the transfer and recordation taxation because the person is selling the business
And not the property.
and not the property. Talk to me. Come on, guys. Wake up. Let's talk. Let's talk some business. What is that? What am I saying? What is this? What is all of this talking about?
It gives you a tax break because you
There you
don't
go.
have to pay for the like you say, transfer and recordation taxes, and then any property taxes that would have been you know, part of that transaction don't happen in that way because you sold the business. So you would be paying whatever on the business and not on the property.
Okay. All right. Is everybody following along what we're trying to say? Is there any questions? Is anybody confused, lost, or are we getting somewhere?
I have a question.
There you go, Angela. Come on.
So you have to have so if you do this with multiple properties, you in essence have a different LLC with each of those properties?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I would. I can't tell you what to do, but that's what I would do. So if I was buying 3919 Pascal Avenue, the name of my corporation would be, or my name of my LLC would be 3919 LLC Properties or Assigns LLC. And the reason why I put or assigns is because I might want to assign it in the sale. Okay, so a lot of people, now I'm gonna just talk to you about what some of the super smart investors are doing. Okay, they're doing that strategy. They're purchasing a property in the name of that LLC, the name, and they use the address. I mean, you don't have to be fancy with the name of the LLC. Sometimes that's the hardest part, is naming the LLC. But for the purposes of investment, if you simply purchase the property at, like I said, 3919 Pascal Avenue LLC or signs, and say, for instance, you purchased that property at 140,000, right? You purchased the property under the name of 3919 LLC or signs. Then you get ready, you call one of your big guns and say, hey man, I just bought this property at 140. The ARV or after repair value of it is 300,000. I got it at 140. I need to make 30 or 40,000 off of it. You can just name a price. Okay, I'll give you 40,000. I purchased the property. So what they're doing, they're not purchasing. They're going to be the ones that's purchasing the property. You have the LLC. You're going to sell them that LLC for an assignment fee. So if you make $30,000 or $40,000, that's an assignment fee that you just made to assign the LLC to them. So you're basically selling them the whole corporation. In that corporation is the asset, better known as 3919 Pascal Avenue. So you just sold them the LLC, and with the LLC came the property. So now you're getting your portion of the assignment for selling the business. So you just assign that business over to that person, and now the assignment is for the business. Does that make sense to everybody? Or did I confuse you? Ask me a question.
Does that include the EIN too?
Everything.
Everything goes with it.
You're selling him everything lock, stock, and barrel. He owns the entire LLC.
Okay.
So I'm assuming that you can, it's fairly easy to get the LLC along with the EIN number, because if you're purchasing the property under that LLC, that must be a fairly quick process.
I'm glad you asked. So let's go to the next slide. Setting up an LLC is way easier than most people think, especially nowadays, right? So for 99% of states, you can simply go to a website now. Now, back in the days when I first got LLCs, you had to make a trip to the office for the state that you wanted to. You had to go down to that state and you had to apply in person, bring all your documents, wait in line, take a ticket, whole bunch
Pratt
of sweaty
Street.
people. Pratt Street in Baltimore, if you were in Maryland, or DC or Virginia, you had to go to the place where you wanted to register your LLC. Let me see if I can move this. I can't even see my slides, y'all. Give me a second. I got my back up. All right. So you just go to the state, the website of the state where you want to establish your LLC. You'll most likely need, sometimes you need to be a resident of the state, or you need to have a business address in the state, a mailing address. And sometimes they want a physical location, depending on the business that you want to register, all right? And you can register an LLC in different states. And I heard D'Amica say that she had an LLC registered in North Carolina. So I'm gonna ask you a question, D'Amica. Is there any particular reason that you registered in North Carolina? Or is that where the partner lives? Why did you register in North Carolina?
Because me and my partner, we're planning to do a lot of business there. So we're
Okay.
from there. And it's me and my best friend, we're from there. And we see a lot of properties that need to be like renovated and redone. And we visit there like all the time. And we're working with a tax company. So they were just like, yeah, if you're going to be there a lot often and, you're doing this in the name of your LLC, your trips you could write off. So we were just like, oh, okay. So instead of us constantly like paying for gas consistently for free, we can write that off because majority of the times we are going there for business. So and family, because our family lives there. So yeah, it was just mainly because we're constantly there and it's cheaper. The houses are cheaper there.
Okay. All right. Can anybody think of any other reasons why you might want to establish an LLC in a different state besides doing business in that particular state?
Sometimes the setup, the structure is more business friendly than it is consumer friendly. So you may pay less taxes. You may not have to identify yourself. You may you may have different advantages that you don't get in Maryland. Maryland is a consumer friendly state and you have to register everything, tell everything, establish who you are, everything. But there's a lot of states where you don't have to do all of that. In Maryland, you pay $300 a year to register your business. In, I don't know, Wyoming, for instance, you don't have to do that. And so I do have entities in other states, but I'm still trying to figure out how it works because there's a lot of ins and outs.
Exactly. D, you hit the nail on the head. I couldn't have said it any better. The whole idea is having an LLC is protecting you and your personal assets from all of the consumer frailties of running a business, people coming after you for, lawsuits and everything, and coming after your personal assets and things of that nature, as well as to shelter yourself from some very hard taxes that you could be responsible for if you're not structured appropriately, and in states where there aren't any state taxes. Now, I'm not going to tell you which state. I'm going to let you do your own research on which state, because there are different reasons to do different things in different states. But I will say this, one of the biggest surprises that I've discovered is that for online businesses especially, and people, even when you hear people talking about establishing offshore accounts and things of that nature, well, one of the most business friendly, as Dee said, states is right next door to us. Does anybody know who it is?
Delaware.
Virginia.
Somebody said
Delaware.
Virginia is Delaware. Absolutely. I was shocked. Delaware is one of the most business-friendly states that you can have. It's almost like having an offshore bank, LLC or account if you're registered in Delaware. And the process is fairly simple and is very inexpensive. It's like $65 or $70, as opposed to in the state of Maryland, you're going to be at somewhere near $200 to establish an LLC. I think Delaware is one of the states that don't have state tax. So there are a lot of things that, again, I'm not an accountant, financial advisor, any of those things. These are things that I want you to talk to your accountants and financial advisors about when establishing your LLCs. But establishing an LLC, you don't have to pay somebody to establish an LLC for you. And there are tons of companies that make a ton of money simply because people don't know how to establish an LLC. But it's really simple. In the state of Maryland, if you click that, the egov.maryland.gov/Business Express, when you just search Business Express Maryland, it'll pop right up. It's going to ask you to register an account, and it's pretty much the same in all the states. It's pretty much a similar process. You register your account, they're going to ask you for your personal information and your business address, location. Now, say for instance, you don't have a business address. What are some of the solutions to that? How can you get a business address?
Well, it
if you
depends.
don't live in Delaware?
What, for Delaware or for just in general?
For Delaware, let's say for Delaware.
Yeah, I don't know. I would say you could get like a UPS. You could actually get a PO box.
Yep.
You can get Now you want to be careful with PO boxes. A lot of states don't like PO boxes, but there are businesses that have a business. They'll give you a business presence
Address.
within their business, and they'll have address, and they'll even have a fee that they'll forward your mail to you, and things of that nature. I see Christian, you have your hand raised. Go ahead, Christian.
Good day, everybody. I think you can have like a virtual office.
There you go. You get a virtual office. So there's so many companies that are doing things to support business owners. There's a lot of, America loves small businesses. Don't get that wrong. But then there are states that want your money. They want you to do business with them and through them. So they make the process a lot easier for them because that's part of the finances that the state brings in. So you need to take advantage of those, especially if they're going to give you shelters from a lot of those liabilities. And that's what it is. LLC stands for limited liability. So you want to take advantage of that limited liability structure. And you want to take advantage of it for the type of business that you own. So if you have an online business, you might want to do a Delaware LLC. If you have a physical location business like what Jamaica was, it might be more beneficial for you to be in the state of North Carolina. Like Dee said, Maryland is very heavy-handed. If you don't pay that $350 every year, Dee, tell them what they do. Do you know what they do to you? Are you there, Dee? Okay, I'll tell you what they'll do. If you don't pay that $350, they'll send out what's called a notice that you're not in good standing. Not in good standing don't mean you did anything wrong. They just want their money. They want that $350 every year. And what that 300, and this is what they call it. They call it, what is it? Personal assets. It's a personal assets that we don't know what you got, but you're doing business. And we figure that your assets, the taxes on your assets is roughly $350. Send us a check. So you send them a check, then you're back in good standing. That's it. So every year you gotta send that $350 check to the state of Maryland and make sure that you're staying in good standing. If you're not in good standing, then you're gonna have a problem with the next part of this presentation, right? Not necessarily with the IRS, because it's easy to go to the IRS. You can go to the IRS every day and twice on Sunday if you want to and get an EIN number. It's very simple. You go to irs.gov website and apply for the employee identification number, all right? For every new business, it's very simple. They're gonna ask you, but you gotta wait now. Wait until you get your articles back from the state. Don't assume that your LLC's name is gonna be yours just because you went to register. You have to make sure that you follow the process for the state and that they approve your articles. When they approve your articles, they're going to also register your name, your business name, as an LLC, a legally licensed LLC in the state. So wait for that before you get your EIN number. Not that the EIN costs you nothing, it's absolutely free, but you might have to change something on your articles in order to get them approved. And if you put the information on your IRS EIN number differently than what they approved, now your information doesn't match. And so then when you go to a bank, all right, you want to go to a business-friendly bank. When you go to that business-friendly bank, they're going to want to see those documents. So you want to bring a printed copy of all your articles of organization that you just printed online. And sometimes you can expedite it depending on the state, and other times you don't need to because the states are very business-friendly. They're going to approve them within one to 2 days. In Maryland, you might wait a week, okay? Especially during COVID, you got really slow, all right? So once you have that, you want to find a business-friendly bank. You want to bring printed copies of your articles of organization, your EIN, even your personal identification. If you have a lease or you have that proof that shows that you are the owner of that mail, the place where your mail is going to be received in that state where your LLC is licensed, you want to bring that with you. And any other documents that you think that the bank might need in order to authenticate and open up your account. Bring all of that information with you, right? Everything needs to make sure that everything matches, right? Your addresses, if you use an address in Delaware, it should be the same address on the EIN, it should be the same address on the articles, everything. Bring all that information up to you. You want to open up a business operating account. And that's the account where you're going to start to receive money for your business in the name of your LLC. And that's very important. You want to start to let your people know that you move from a sole proprietorship, whoever's paying you, to a business, to your business name, and you want to start to get paid in the name of your business. That's very important. Do anybody have any questions about the first 3 steps that I just mentioned?
I do.
Go ahead, Angie.
So with, let's say with the brokerage that we're at, if we are doing business under an LLC in a different state, does our brokerage pay under that LLC regardless as to what state we got that LLC?
Yep. So if you have an LLC, what you're going to do is you're going to do a new, what's that for, W-9? You're going to do a W-9 with Porterhouse to tell us who to pay. So if you want to be paid as Angela's Properties LLC and is registered in whatever state, all we need is the name of the LLC and the employer identification number. Everything else is going to be tracked through that. Does that answer your question?
It does. So then, and I know that you're not an accountant, but you might know the answer to this. So when you're saying that you said the taxes, I guess, pass through to your personal tax rate and so forth. So if your business entity is in another state and you reside in, let's say, Maryland, do you know, does that affect anything or it does not?
It's going to affect something, but I'm gonna let you talk to your accountant about that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a little complicated.
Yeah.
At least
So
that's what I've
gonna,
found.
yeah, you're gonna need to, and here's what I would say, you know, you really want to have you want to have an accountant or a tax lawyer that's very savvy with real estate in specific, because there's some different benefits that you get as a real estate professional as well. You want to have yourself established as a real estate professional. And you want to talk to the person about what your goals are and what you're trying to do and how you want to establish your business and structure your business. And if you want to umbrella your business, which is what we were talking about, do you have a parent company and all of those things, have those conversations. It's going to cost you to, you know, trust me, these accountants, they want to make some money, but it's an investment in your business. All right. That's why I want you to set all this stuff up, meaning get your LLC, get your EIN number, and then open up your bank account, because the next step will tell you, you know, so some of the things that I'm gonna talk about in the next few steps are going to tell you, hey, these are all things that you need to do in order to get some money so that you can start investing in your business so that your business can be a success.
Can
All
I
right?
ask another question?
Yes.
Okay, Angela just turned off her mic, so it- my question is about establishing a business address. I heard you start talking about that, but then I did not hear the finish. I have found that it is a little challenging in Maryland to establish a business address if you do not use a brick and mortar structure. Do you have any suggestions for that, or what kinds of things have you or anyone else done in order to satisfy that in Maryland? So I know it's not the same every place, but it is that way here in this state.
Okay, so that's correct. So you can use places, you can use PorterHouse address. You can use our physical address. You can use places like Mailbox, etc. You can use places like
the issue that I've had with places like mailboxes, etc., is they call that a certain kind of address and they won't accept it if they can tell that it is
right,
not a structure.
right. So though when you get pushed back like that, D, then you just got to go to the next one. You know what I mean? Sometimes it might be that particular entity, the way it's set up, or the physical location, or what have you. But it's not as difficult. You just have to continue to go through that. Like I said, go through the process. And I've used, I've used, mailboxes, et cetera, with no issues. You might have had an issue. If I was you, I would try UPS. I would try, different. So I don't want to sell any of these different brands. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What I'm saying to you is that that's an issue, but it's not a big issue. It should be something that you can easily overcome.
Okay.
You just got to get some creativity to it, and then if you need some help, you can call me offline, and I can help you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, that's all I want to say on that. Anybody else?
And Mr. Porter, so I heard you say one of the options were that you could use PorterHouse address. Is it suggested that
for real estate? For real estate.
I was going to say, is it suggested that even for real estate that you be aware of that before we start?
We like to know, but I think once you do the W-9, it's kind of, we know this. So we get right price property stuff. I'm gonna start having to charge them people. They send a whole bunch of stuff to the office, and I'm gonna have to call the owner and tell him.
I don't know what you're referring to.
Come clear his mailbox out. So yeah, it's fine. That's fine, especially if it's for and if it's for real estate. Yes, absolutely. I see Christian, you have your hand raised.
Just want to make a contribution regarding using the PO box in Maryland. People that use PO box in Maryland, one of the drawback is that if you go to the bank and you say, okay, I want to obtain loan to support my business, you're gonna have problem with that. If you don't have a physical location, they're not gonna support you.
And Christian, you're absolutely right. That's why if you, for real estate purposes, if you're doing things related to real estate, you use 1400. You can use the Upper Marlboro address. You can use any of the locations addresses that we have, as a matter of fact. And you can get your mail there, and we have mail forwarding set up for those locations where you can get the mail and then send it back to Upper Marlboro. All right, so you can definitely do that. All right, so again, and many other people who have business entities have their mail and use Porterhouse's physical address for the Upper Marlboro location. I see it all the time, and that's perfectly fine. So this is what we want you to do. We want you to set yourselves up for success, and you have to do what you have to do to get it established. But Christian, you hit the nail on the head. That's number 4. Christian said you want to go get some money. Okay, so in order to do business, you need some money. And you know, when we tell people often, when you start out with us, we say you want to get a card, a credit card. Yeah, we say, I think Jasmine's probably told everybody, but maybe we need to elaborate a little more. Want to get a card that you're going to use just for business. Now, I'm going to make a segue for a few minutes about my experience with setting up credit and business credit and loans and lines of credit and things of that nature. If you all would just indulge me for a minute, this is very important. All of those things being established, 1, 2, 3 being established, right? Now, you see in parentheses, it says, get your personal credit right. In the beginning, when you start out in business, they're going to, when they want to establish business credit with you, they're going to need a guarantee, a person who's a guarantor. The person that's a guarantor, their credit needs to be straight too. The bank is going to have a hard time loaning money to a business, even in LLCs, you know, where the owner of the business credit is personal credit is not good. So you want to get your personal credit right. All right. That being said, I'm going to give you a couple of tricks and strategies to get your score. I'm not talking about your credit history. Let's separate the two. You got your credit score and you got your credit history. When I send people to Mike Cooper for pre-approval, he's looking at their credit score and he's looking at their credit history. But the first thing he wants to know is what's their score. Okay, so the score is there's a way to kind of get your credit score up. Now, some of you have been around for a while, and I've done this a little bit on this before. Can anybody tell me some of the tricks that I've recommended or that you know to get your credit score up?
I have one. Is Kerman on the line? Because I got one from him from you.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. What is it?
Which is to make more payments per month than just one. Make them as often as possible.
Okay. All right. That's very good, Dean. I'm going to talk about that in a second. Is anybody else? Anybody else? All right. So listen up, guys. Here's the quick and dirty, and I can go into this at another time. And I'm not ashamed of this. Well, I should be, but I'm not. When I didn't know about credit and how important it was, my credit score was extremely low. And I went to school for business. They don't teach you all that stuff in business school. They don't teach you anything about credit. And really nobody teaches you anything about credit. You kind of learn, you know, people tell you to pay your bills. Well, when I was in college, I don't know about you, they used to give away these coffee mugs. and they used to give away these water bottles. Curtis, you went to Bush State. You remember they used to give away them water bottles? They had a table in the bookstore and they give away right in front of the bookstore, and the lady was all nice and they give you all this
Water bottles, t-shirts.
book bags. And all you had to do was fill out this little form and sign your name, put your social security
That's it.
number on it, and you could take anything off the table. It was, man, you didn't know anything. I ain't think nothing of it. I figured they was trusted people that the university allowed to come on campus. So I signed up and got my free stuff all the time. And then later on, they sent me a little card in the mail and said, here's your new credit card. You got $250. Well, I said, them people are really nice. They didn't gave me a water bottle, t-shirt, book bag, and now they done sent me $250. I was excited. I had no idea what credit was. We spent up all that money and no money to pay them people back. That was my experience with credit. Then people tell me, oh, you don't ever get a credit card. This is what my community taught me. I don't know what your community taught you. This is what my community taught me. Don't use them credit cards. They get you in trouble. Put it in the freezer and freeze it and only use it in emergencies and all of these things. So that was my learning about credits. You know, just avoid it. Use your money, pay for things in cash. You don't use credit. All right, well, that's what I did. And as a result, I had a credit score that was in the high fours. And every time I tried to go get something, I wondered why they be shaking their head. As soon as they look at me, they just start shaking their head. They walking, the car dealer, everybody shaking their head. And they put me in the smallest car and the oldest car that they could find. They say, here, we give you that. And I had no idea what was going on. I don't know if I'm the only one that had that experience, but if you had a similar experience, you can give me a thumbs up, make me feel better. Well, along the time when, and it really wasn't until I really got into real estate, and we used to have this thing that Jasmine and I did. We would take millionaires out to lunch on Fridays and just let millionaires talk. And we would talk to them about all kinds of things, you know, corporate and leverage, and they would just talk on a whole different level. They would laugh about things that we were stressing over as if it was nothing. They were like, just get the money, just do it. And we were like, well, where you just get the money from? How's your credit? Everybody, then that word started popping. How's your credit? How's your credit? How's your credit? And you know, you use somebody else's money. You borrow, you use, and I said, I don't want to borrow something that I can't pay back. Everybody told me that wasn't a good thing to do. And as I began to listen to these millionaires, I began to quickly realize they had a lot of money, but they didn't always have that money. They made that money from borrowing and using other people's money to buy assets for themselves, and then reaping the benefits of the assets, putting that in their personal savings, structuring their businesses in LLCs, et cetera, to protect them from anything in case even if they defaulted on a loan, they was in the name of the LLC. So they can go after the business, but they couldn't come after the person. The person got the money. And I was like, hold on, this can't be right. This can't be the way it works. And I found out it is the way it works. It's the way it's always worked in America. And it blew my mind. It just blew my head off. So I began to look and listen to what these people were doing in terms of building their credit. And one of the things I quickly learned was to get rid of your debit card. You should never, ever, ever use a debit card for anything except transferring money from your debit to your credit. And they don't even call it debit and credit. They call it from your cash account to your credit account. And they use the credit card, they use their credit cards every single day for everything. I don't care if they're buying a piece of chewing gum or if they're buying a snack from a 7-Eleven. They're going to use that credit card over and over every day. They don't even talk about debit cards. They don't want to hear anything about a debit card. They very rarely keep cash, because their cash is their cash. That is not part of their business. They separate business from personal. You don't talk about, that's why they don't talk about cash. You try to have a conversation with a business, with a multi-millionaire about how much money he has, that's almost offensive. Don't talk about my money. That's my money. My money. But you can talk about business and you can talk about investments. You can talk about how much his net worth is and all of these things. Is two different conversations to him because his personal cash is his personal cash, and his personal cash is not going to be used to benefit his business. He's not going to use his personal cash. He's going to use other people's cash, other people's money, other people's investment money. And so it blew my mind. That being said, I quickly started to do research on how to bolster your credit score. And one of the best techniques that I found is you got to think of it like the kids play these video games. You got to think about it in terms of knowing how to get the score, the highest score. And the way you get the highest score, and let's say it like this, the information that they share with you is the information that benefits the bank. Okay, so your bank card, your credit card people tell you to pay this amount by the due date. So they might tell you pay $50, $35, $25 by the due date. You like them, you saying, okay, I'm still carrying this balance, but all I got to do is pay $25, but you still have that balance. Well, they're making money on that balance off of you guys who carry the balances, okay? And what they're trying to do is get you deeper and deeper in debt, right? And what they're hoping is that you stay so much in debt that you'll keep paying that $25 in perpetuity, all right? So there's a rule of, was it 78? Basically, they're setting you up so that you end up paying that $200 for the next 78 years if you keep paying that $25 a month. It'll never get paid off. And what these people were telling me was that, no, that's not the way you work it. My personal money is there to fund my credit account. My credit account there is there to build my credit worthiness by showing that I can purchase something and still carry a zero balance. And they don't even know what their due date is, because if you purchase something today and you pay it tomorrow, a couple of things happen. One, you're utilizing your credit, but you're not getting taxed for utilizing the credit. Two, you're getting a positive point for making a payment on your credit scale, and it starts to offset the formula that is used to calculate what your credit score is. So the more payments that you make, the more positive points you get in a month. So if you can make 20 to 30 payments, you're going to get 20 to 30 positive points, as opposed to just getting 1 point for paying your credit on time, and then they're going to subtract the point because you're carrying a balance, and they're going to subtract another point if your balance is over a certain percentage, and they're going to subtract another point if you were late or you didn't pay. They're going to track. So by the time you get that 1 point for your one payment that you made on the due date, and they subtract all the other points, your credit score starts to go down. And that is one of the biggest things to do, is to, one, you don't want to carry a balance. Two, you want to make sure that whatever you have available in your bank account, your cash account, you don't want to spend any more than that. So you don't want to get in debt, put it that way, on your credit cards. If you have, say for instance, if I have a bill, or not a bill, say for instance, I have $1,000 that I have access to in my cash account, my personal account, and I don't want to spend my $1,000 in cash, I'm gonna swipe my credit card for $1,000. Then what I'm gonna do is divide that payment into 30 payments. So $1,000 and 30 payments is what? Help me, that's about $30 a day, right? Am I doing it right? $33 a day, something like that. Help me out, y'all.
Yeah, 33.3.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you. I'm on the fly, brother. I appreciate you. So yeah, $33 a day. And this is all hypothetical because there's some little nuances that I'll tell you about in a second. But I'm going to divide that $1,000 into 33 equal payments, or 30 equal payments of $33. And what I'm going to do is every day I'm going to open up my account, bam, I'm going to hit them $33. Next day, 33, 33, 33, because I got the money in my account, so I'm just transferring it from my cash account to my credit account. So I'm not exhausting that $1,000 that's my own personal cash. And at the same time, I'm making positive points and paying my credit card down, and they can see that I'm going to pay that off before the statement date. That's the most important date. The statement date is the most important day. You want to make sure that you pay your credit card down by your statement date. all right? If you pay it down by your statement date, the credit bureau can only send, the credit card company can only send to the credit bureaus what is printed on your statement. If by your statement date you have a zero balance, even though you spent $1,000, they're going to report that you have a zero balance that you owe to the credit card company. And what they're going to do is they're going to call you and try to up your credit balance from $1,000 to $2,000 because they're trying to get you in debt. They want to see if you're going to spend that $2,000. But if you follow that routine that I gave you, what happened is your credit score will go from 470 to 800. If you just do that over time. And it doesn't take a lot of time to do it. So when I was at a 470 or so, I did that for about 6 months. My credit score jumped up to like a 520. I was amazed. I said, this is working. And I kept doing it. And then in 2 or 3 months later, I was at a 600. And I kept doing it. And 2 or 3 months later, I was at a 640. And I kept doing it. And then 2 or 3 months later, I was at a 670. Now, once you get to that level, now you're trying to break over into the 700. It is a little bit more difficult, but you just keep doing the same routine. Keep doing the same routine. And it might take a little bit longer. And there's some other things that I could teach you to do, but I don't want to spend that much time because I see we only got 3 minutes and I haven't even got to the end of my slide. But those are the things that we're going to talk about. I'll talk to you all about those strategies and how to get that thing right. But I just want to get that in your mind. That debit card, I highly recommend you not do it. Your credit card is what's going to build your credit worthiness. Then we can look at your credit history and we can start to erase some of the things that are on there, but you got to get that balance down and you want to divide it and start making the payments on it. Curtis, your hand is raised and I'm going to go to my next slide while I'm waiting on you. Go ahead.
Quick question, Shay. So if just say my minimum payment is, easy math, $100 a month or $100 for my credit card. So what I could, and you always want to pay a little bit more, but what if I'm going to pay $150 for the month? I would then take that $150 I know I'm going to pay for the month and then just break it up into smaller payments that I'm going to make throughout the month.
If that's your whole balance. Now, if you're carrying a balance and your minimum payment is only $150, I want you to pay that balance down as quickly as possible.
Okay.
If you can't do it in 30 days, do it in 60. If you can't do it in 60 days, do it in 90. Whatever you can afford to contribute to get that balance down to a zero in the shortest amount of time, you have to be aggressive to get yourself. That's like what you do, Curtis, when you give people what they call a detox. You're just trying to get them right first. Once you get them detoxed, then you can start to use the strategy. Okay. You follow what I'm saying?
Yep.
But you want to get rid of that big balance first. Now, some of you have multiple credit cards. Snowball it. Pay off the smallest one first, then use the money that you would have been paying on the small one and then snowball that into the next largest bank account. And then the next one until you pay them all off. Don't think this is going to happen overnight, but just got to get this in mind. You got to get your credit right, your personal credit right, because once you do that, when you go apply for a business loan or a business credit card, you're not going to have a problem. And my favorite is the line of credit, because what that is like a combination between a credit card and a loan, because it gives you a lot of money that you can use, but like a credit card, you can use it over and over again instead of like a loan. Once you pay it off, you got to apply again if you want it. So when you get a line of credit, you can get a huge amount and you can use that line of credit, buy an asset, and then let the asset pay that credit line back, and you can use it again and again and again, and that's a whole nother thing. So that's one thing I was going to talk about. I want to talk about leverage. I want to talk about a lot of stuff, but let me stick to what I'm talking about with the LLCs. Have your accountant establish the LLC as what's called an S corporation. I'm going to let you all do that for homework. I'm not going to get into what an S corporation is, but I'm giving you a tip right now. S corporation, there are certain requirements that your accountant is going to tell you that you need to do, and that should be your goal to work towards work towards a benefit of establishing yourself as an S corp. The next secret that I heard a guy say a long time ago, and it didn't make sense to me, but he was doing pretty good in real estate. And he says, "Yeah, man, but I'm on salary." I'm like, "Huh?" He said, "Yeah, I work for my LLC." And my LLC gives me a check every other week, but I'm on minimum wage or I'm paying myself this much. You in your LLC have to establish what your salary is going to be for the work that you do for the LLC. It's a business that's paying you. So you put yourself on salary through your LLC. I'm not going to get into that. Again, there's more questions for you to talk to your tax accountant about. Last one. Once you put yourself on salary for your LLC, pay yourself regularly. All right. Pay yourself regularly, which means your taxes, your FICA, and all that stuff comes out of your salary every 2 weeks. I get a salary. Ms. Porter gets a salary. We get a salary. Now, owners also can take what's called distributions, but when you take the distributions, you do have to pay taxes on it, depending on how your corporation is set up at the personal level. All right. Make sure, what does it say at the bottom? I can't even read it. I got something in the way. Let me see. I got my backup over here. It says, make sure that this is outlined in your corporate records. Now, what are corporate records? How many of you all heard of corporate records? I'm done for the Anita. I know I went over. I'm done. How many people have corporate records for their business or their LLC that's set up? D, Curtis.
Yeah, I have it set up, but I really need to do better.
Do you have your corporate records?
I don't have my corporate records, but I know my wife is looking at me now like, why don't you have your corporate records? Wait, I do. Yeah,
Okay,
I
don't know
do.
if
I
you can
do.
see.
She's
You
looking
do
at me like,
have
yeah,
it?
you
Okay,
do.
good.
She's like, you got them.
Good. Okay. If you guys can see, I don't know if they can see me, Anita. I know you
I
cut
can.
me off.
Well,
Okay.
Yeah, we can see the book.
Okay, you can see the book. This is
Mhm.
what I want to show you. All right, these are my corporate records, and these are the corporate records for Porterhouse. And I have corporate records for every entity that we own. And in there, you get all kind of stuff, your membership certificates. Now, you can go on Amazon now and get these, y'all. They customize them for you and everything. And then they give you the little stamper thing. Y'all ever see the people with the stamp thing that they press? They give you all of that. It's a corporate records kit. Your corporate records establish how you as the owner get paid and what distributions and what the corporation is going to take. This is the entity speaking, the entity speaking for itself to tell everybody in the world how you are operating within the corporation and what it is going to do for you as the owner and all of that stuff. And you're gonna need these in case you ever get in situation. They're gonna say, let's see your corporate records. And your corporate records should speak to everything that you have envisioned for the LLC, because you're the vision for the LLC, the entity. You think for it, but you have to make sure that you put in that corporate records, and it's simple to fill out because it gives you all of it. You just fill in the blanks, kind of like our contracts. But you want to fill out what it is and how you envision your corporation taking care of you, your assets, and everything else that you need. And you want to get a corporate records for each one of your LLCs that you're actually using and operating. If you just establish an LLC because it's an idea, that's not a good idea to establish your LLC. Now, that being said, if you're buying a corporation or an LLC, going back to something I said earlier, and your idea is to transfer the LLC, you don't have to get one of these corporate records because you're not going to own the LLC that long. Your whole point is to purchase it for wholesale. All right. And that's what that is. So that's my time for the day, guys. I don't know how that time got away from me. I only had 7 bullets. I don't even know what just happened. But I'm sorry, Anita. I know I went over. I see Jasmine giving me the signal to shut up. So if you guys have any questions, I'll take the questions. Otherwise, Anita, you can cut me off.
So can I just say again, thank you, Mr. Porter. See, I told you guys that he knows everything. He even knows enough to know that, go talk to your tax accountant. So those are not the questions he's going to answer. There was something in the chat from D'Amica that said, for more business credit and funding, look into getting a paydeck score. And so I wanted to put that out there. Also, too, because we are just a bit over, I wanted to just release those that are needing to leave now. Mr. Porter is willing to stay on just a bit longer because I know there were 2 people who had their hands raised in the chat. And so if you don't mind, Mr. Porter, we can release those that are needing to leave at this time. And
Right.
you can take a couple more minutes.
Absolutely.
to
Go do what you have to do, make money, be profitable today. I wish you all blessings and success. I just pray for your businesses.
Okay, and so before you leave, though, I wanted to remind everybody about the new agent training this evening, and that training is going to be on listing contract presentation. So make sure that you join us this evening. Thank you guys so much for those that have to leave, and for those that are needing to stay on just a bit longer. We have a bit more time for you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Amazing information, Shay. Excellent job. I always learn so much from you. Appreciate you.
All right, Curtis. You know, I was scrambling, man. It's not enough time.
Hey,
So
keep
that
going.
means that we're going to
Next-
have to
next
have a
week.
part 2.
Exactly. Part
Hey,
2.
I'm ready. I'm ready. It's so much. And I just want you guys to be extremely successful. I mean, there's so much information up here, but we're just going to the next level. But I want to make sure you guys are setting your things up and having a vision for whatever you decide to do, because where there's a will, there's a way. You don't have to use your own money. I want to talk to you guys about leveraging opportunities and leveraging technology and leveraging everything